Washington, D.C. is filled with a number of awe-inspiring monuments to prior conflicts the United States of America was involved with. The most famous is the Vietnam War Memorial. And well, not everybody can get to Washington, D.C. to pay their respects to that iconic wall of names. So there are a number of traveling Vietnam War Memorial walls that go across the country to bring the memorial to small communities like the one we're in today, Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania, so local veterans and loved ones can pay their respects at this monument. So we're going to go, and first we're going to explore the history of the Vietnam War Memorial itself, and then we're going to go see this traveling wall and see if we can identify a few of the names that were from here in the Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania area. From conception to dedication, creating the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was a war unto itself, a war that redefined monumentation within the United States of America. It was conceived as a means of reconciliation between the country and its service members from the Vietnam War. 1,421 designs would be submitted to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. The winning design was created by Maya Lin, then a 21-year-old undergraduate at Yale University. Her plan envisioned a park within the wider National Mall. The design would appear like a giant V-shaped cut into the Earth's surface. Its flanks would point toward the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial, establishing the impact the Vietnam War would have on the wider course of American history. No statues of larger-than-life individuals stood in awe-inspiring poses. The only faces seen would be those paying their respects at the wall, as the thin black granite panels would reflect like glass. Each panel that made up the memorial would hold the names of the American service members lost over the course of the multi-decade conflict. Unfortunately, when studying the history of any war memorial in the United States, controversy seems to abound. Both the designer and their design came under scrutiny. A college woman of Asian descent designing the memorial that amongst those honored were men drafted to fight in Southeast Asia did not sit well with some veterans and funders of the memorial. What truly upset critics was the contrast in Lin's design compared to what had come before. Take, for example, what sits across the Potomac River from National Mall. That would be the United States Marine Corps Memorial, created by Felix de Weldon and Horace W. Peaslee. It is a towering recreation of the flag raising on Mount Suribachi, which embodies the faith and courage all fighting service members in the United States Armed Forces are expected to possess. Its appearance has been so inspiring that the memorial has multiple replicas established across the country. Lin had created a monument that was the antithesis of heroic symbols like the flag raising. This was a memorial documenting individual losses over a long and painful period of time. But critics saw this antithesis as defaming the sacrifices made by service members. One fierce opinion said the design was a black trench that would scar the National Mall. The apprehensions washed away when the memorial was dedicated in November of 1982. During a 5-day commemoration, representatives of some 150,000 service members descended upon Washington, D.C. At the National Cathedral, the name of every engraved individual was read out over a period of 56 hours. For the actual dedication, thousands made up a crowd that was like a community, yet remained silent for the occasion. The crowds would never cease. Today, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. is the highest visited memorial within the National Mall. It is estimated 5 million people pay their respects to the wall annually. The reflective surface of the black granite panels has led to emotional experiences for veterans, loved ones, and other visitors at the memorial. The reputation of the memorial being a wall that heals has inspired multiple entities to produce reproductions of various sizes to help veterans and loved ones reconcile loss, as well as to educate younger generations about the war. Some are static, while others can be traveled. One example is sponsored by the Vietnam and all veterans of Brevard. Florida resources were used in the creation of this traveling wall that is 3/5 the size of the original, transported between communities in a large trailer, often given an escort. Volunteers are on hand to help identify individual names on the wall, as well as to deliver anecdotes of individuals honored on the memorial. Based upon the 3/5 scale, that would put this particular wall's length at almost 150 feet long and approximately 6 feet tall at its apex. This reproduction retains Maya Lin's original layout of the names, which begins and terminates at the wall's apex, encouraging the onlooker to read right to left to follow each individual loss chronologically. The traveling wall also takes into fact more names are being added to this present day, as new information is still surfacing about the fate of certain service members a half-century since the Vietnam War ended. As mentioned at the start of the video, we at Readout Productions paid our respects to this traveling wall in the community of Mount Pleasant, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. Mount Pleasant has been a subject of a handful of our videos over the years. Its legacy is that of coal, coke, glass, and railroads. By the time of the Vietnam War, however, its foundational industries were starting to fade. Multiple residents from the greater Mount Pleasant area would serve in the United States Armed Forces during the Vietnam War. These 7 men did not come back. One of the region's earliest losses was Lance Corporal Thomas Blair Kemmerer. A member of the 3rd Marine Division, he was killed at age 20 while on an evacuation mission in the Quang Nam province on July 19, 1966. Staff Sergeant John William Ernestine was from Everson, Pennsylvania. He was 38 years old and had devoted half his life toward the military. A month into his tour in Vietnam with the 25th Infantry Division, the armored personnel carrier he was riding in was struck by an explosive, leading to his death on December 11, 1966. Private First Class Earl Wayne Long was from nearby Roughsdale, a small town just west of Mount Pleasant. He had graduated from high school the spring of 1967 and immediately found himself serving in Vietnam. Attached to the 11th Armored Cavalry, he was killed as a consequence of an explosive on August 15, 1967. He was 20 years of age. Specialist William Anderson Jr. was from Acme. A member of the 1st Infantry Division, he found himself as part of a mortar team. On October 9, 1967, while his team was moving from a combat action to a night location, an ambush transpired. When the smoke cleared, Anderson was dead, another 20-year-old fatality. On April 2, 1968, Kecksburg resident and 1st Marine Division member Private William George Wilkins died likely from the fragments of a landmine while engaging in an evacuation mission in the Quang Tin province. He was 18 years old. Mount Pleasant resident Ronald Eli Allensick was attached to the Americal Division of the U.S. Army. Stationed near the Cambodia-Vietnam border, newspapers reported he was killed by a lightning strike while on guard duty October 12, 1968. He was 22 years old. Private First Class Joseph Petrarca was from Scottdale, Pennsylvania, located a few miles south of Mount Pleasant. He was a member of Company E, 7th Cavalry Regiment, and was killed in action March 17, 1969. He was 5 days shy of his 21st birthday. You may have noticed most of the individuals we named were under the age of 21. Statistically speaking, a third of all American service members that participated in the war were draftees. The age of conscription had been lowered to 18 during World War II and remained as such with the Military Selective Service Act of 1948. It was an amended form of this legislature that was used to draft American men to fight in Vietnam. However, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution only declares the right to vote for those 21 and older. Male American citizens caught between ages 18 and 21 could not choose the elected officials that were deciding the policies that our lives were being put in peril for. While there was discourse about lowering the voting age during World War II, serious pressure did not exist until the Vietnam War. Calling it a war is not even legally correct in the United States, as Congress never issued a formal declaration. As the fight in Vietnam dragged on, talks of lowering the voting age nationwide became louder. What followed was a series of legal clashes that culminated with the ratification of the 26th Amendment in July 1971. This chain of events, however, was periphery to the crux of the war, that of a civil war between rival governments which blew into a messy proxy war over communism. When the United States ceased its intervention in 1975, the war had claimed the lives of over 58,000 100,000 Americans. I should stress the opinions of those protesting the war did not always equate to those who were waging it. Like any conflict, a multitude of reasons to taking up arms exist. In the case of the Vietnam War, 2/3 of the U.S. military that participated were in fact volunteers. In August of 1967, William Anderson Jr. made his thoughts known in a letter back to the Mount Pleasant area. It makes us feel good to get these packages, though we've been hearing all of those anti-war demonstrations back home. At least we know that there is somebody thinking about us. I'm sure that if those demonstrators were to come over here and see this country, they would change their mind in a hurry. Well, thank you folks for tuning in, and hopefully this kind of serves as a temporary replacement if you've yet to have the chance to visit the original Vietnam War Memorial, or a traveling war memorial has yet to come to your community. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button down below. Let the TubeU algorithm know you do want to use social media to be edumacated, to get historical education. And if you want to go the extra mile supporting us, consider subscribing here to Readout Productions, either on YouTube or the Green website. And you can go the extra mile and supporting us on our Ko-fi page. Link is in the description below. Well, it's about to pour, and seems like we're going to get a cool off finally on this very humid Labor Day weekend. So I'm going to hop in the car and get on home. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks.